Hey guys, Michael here at Flat 6 Motorsports, and today we're going to be talking about this 925 horsepower Turbo S, but more specifically on the Öhlins Road Track that we just installed. So let's get into it. So we're in this beautiful chalk 992.1 Turbo S, full bolt-on with upgraded turbos, pure 1000s. We haven't had a turbo on the channel here for a little bit, so figured we'd do a little overview of this build, but we really wanted to highlight the suspension on this car. We put Öhlins Road Track on this car last year. We did quite a feature with Öhlins. We went to their North American facility and did a lot of testing with them on their shaker rig with our R&T, kind of comparing the differences between the factory PASM system and sport PASM systems to their Öhlins Road Track system. We've also done some TTX stuff, which is their more dedicated track stuff. But long story short, we did put Road and Track on this car, which is it's a phenomenal upgrade. But just to kind of highlight a little bit more about this full package, like I said, it's full bolt-ons or a 925 kit, which basically consists of high flow, Sol high flow link pipes. So we moved from an 800 cell catalyst to a 200 cell catalyst. This car also has DO88 plumbing effectively, so the turbo inlets, the intercooler piping and all that, as well as obviously an upgraded intercooler, so CSF intercooler on this car. We went with pure 1000s, which is basically a modified OEM turbo housing. They put a larger turbine and compressor, as well as upgraded internals, and then upgraded air filter, things like that. And then the highlight here is the Öhlins Road Track, right? So to dive a little bit more into that and why we find the Road and Track to be far superior than PASM in literally every category is, a lot of times when people talk to us about suspension upgrades, their first and most biggest concern would be drivability and comfort, right? So typically when you think of an upgraded coilover solution, a lot of times you're thinking of a stiffer or harsher ride, which in a lot of cases can be the case, right? Even lowering springs or something like that can certainly compromise or at the very least affect the ride quality of the car. And let's face it, this is a Turbo S. This isn't exactly most people's first option for a track car. But let me tell you, with how this car is set up right now, it's such a well-balanced and capable platform. But if there is one shortcoming to a Stage 4 package, outside of the power, it's definitely the suspension, right? And the reason for that is PASM, unfortunately. If you've talked to anyone on the team here at Flat 6, specifically about suspension, you'll know that generally it's our goal to get you away from PASM, right? So for some people, PASM fits the bill. They like the idea of having the dual personality, let's call it, of a softer and stiffer suspension. But the reality is even in the soft setting, it's over dampened from the factory. And this is across Carrera models, turbo models, GT cars. It's just the primary disadvantage to PASM is that it's over dampened. The main difference with Öhlins is that it's a manually adjustable suspension, right? So there are clickers. In Road and Track's case, it's a single adjustment, so the single clicker affects both rebound and compression linearly. So Öhlins sets that up internally with the valving on how they want that to work, where you put the clicker. It's not a one-to-one where compression and rebound is changing one-to-one. It is more of a exponential change. So as the rebound changes, they're compensating with the rebound and compression and things like that. So three main points I want to touch on with that and what really separates the Road and Track. Dual flow valve technology. This is a patented design by Öhlins, and this is really one of the main key factors that separates Öhlins from pretty much everyone else, and certainly different than what is on the car stock. Normally in a traditional single tube or twin tube shock design, you basically have a plunger or a piston that is moving up and down through the stroke. and it's pushing through oil, right? And there's orifices in this plunger or valves, depending on the design, and as it's passing through the oil, that's what's creating the resistance, right? Traditionally, there's a trade-off here, right? If you want a better performing suspension or stiffer rebound and compression for more support, it's going to compromise the everyday use of the car, right? So when you're on a typical drive, you're not necessarily putting a lot of load through that suspension. It's going to be pretty stiff or harsh. What DFV allows, or the dual flow valve allows, it's an intermediate valve effectively. So under those quick undulations and what would normally translate to an uncomfortable ride is now handled by the DFV rather than relying on the main plunger, which, you know, if you're setting it up for performance, is going to be stiff effectively. So the best way to describe it is you basically have an intermediate valve that for all of those abrupt and undulating things that would normally upset the car and make it very stiff, gets handled by the DFV and smooths them out dramatically. So it really is kind of a dual personality suspension, but it's all happening, you know, behind the scenes. So it takes away the harshness that you would typically experience in, let's call it, a performance suspension. So that's why when we say that the Öhlins Road Track is truly a no compromise setup, I'm telling you right now, this car, even in what, let's call it a more sporty setup with how we have the clickers right now, is a much more comfortable ride on the street, but it still gives you a much more sharp, direct feel. This car stock tends to understeer pretty heavily, and typically you'd say, okay, well, you know, that's generally an alignment issue, which can definitely be resolved with alignment, absolutely. But, you know, the funny part about that is we set this car up with factory alignment set up after we did the Öhlins install. So we're truly comparing apples to apples here, and the understeer is virtually gone. And we're not even on a performance tire. It's on a brand new set of PS4S's, which, for honestly, the power level of this car and the paces that we put it through, generally you would consider not necessarily the best tire to be, you know, to have the car on. Generally put like Cup 2s on the car and things like that. But even with this tire compound, with how the suspension is set up, making nearly 1,000 horsepower, it is an incredibly capable car. But now with the Öhlins Road Track, I mean, this thing turns, it rotates, it's really on the front, which is nice. It gives you a lot of confidence. But just cruising around on the street, much more compliant ride. And I can't harp on that enough. It is infinitely more comfortable to drive than even PASM in its softest setting. So that's point number one, and that's the reason for that is the DFV. Second would be basically the type of needle design that they're using for the compression and rebound control, right? So as you screw in the clicker or screw out the clicker, it's basically moving a needle type adjustment in and out of an orifice, right? As the orifice gets larger, more oil passes through. As the orifice gets smaller, less oil passes through, and that's how we're increasing or decreasing stiffness effectively for both rebound and compression. They use a needle type design, which is a very small thing, but as the oil in the suspension gets warmer or hotter and the viscosity changes, this has an impact on rebound and compression, right? So when you're loading up the car or just cruising around, you'll have some inconsistencies there with how the suspension behaves with a more traditional design. Due to the needle design, the orifice size is actually changing slightly to compensate for the increase in temperature, you know, viscosity change of the oil. So it's a very consistent suspension. No matter how you drive the car, it's going to be the same every time. And once again, that's the big difference between, you know, an upgraded aftermarket system versus what comes standard on the car with PASM is the consistency. And then lastly, just to kind of harp on the details that Öhlins goes through with this suspension, is the Teflon coating that they use on a lot of the surfaces inside the components. Basically, it's called parasitic friction. And basically what that means is as the strut is under load, it twists and you have lateral load on it, right? So as we turn, although the shock is moving up and down, it's also getting lateral forces placed on it. So effectively what that means is as the piston is moving through the tube, it's getting load on one side or the other of the piston depending on what you're doing with the car. and that can have what's called stiction. And as that stiction happens, it's effectively compromising the stroke of the piston inside the shock. Öhlins Teflon coats all of the internals effectively on these components so that there is no parasitic friction. It's the same stroke no matter what, no matter how much load you're putting through the car. There's no compromise there, there's no change. So it's all these little things that really add up to what, you know, sets a high quality aftermarket component up from, you know, a stock mass-produced suspension component. A little deep dive into what makes Öhlins Road & Track Öhlins Road & Track. But we'll have all this up on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to email me directly at michael@flat6motorsports.com, and see you guys next time.